Thank you for inviting me to appear before the community today. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the plight of my family, in particular my family members, Siamak and Babak Namazi. And as I will be describing, I'll be speaking mostly about Siamak today because of the issues that have been going on with him. As a quick background, my brother Siamak was arrested in October of 2015 by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards. In January of 2016, when the so-called nuclear deal was made and the deal was signed for reasons that I never understood, Siamak was not included in the swap that included other Americans who were released at that time. During his time in the IRGC ward of Ewen prison, Siamak has endured many horrors, including spending most of his time in solitary confinement, being tortured, and being deprived of basic, very basic access to warm clothes and food, and being mistreated greatly. It breaks my heart that this week we marked on March 2nd, Siamak being the longest held dual national American-Iranian dual national being held in Iran, and that by marking 1,602 days that Siamak has been held in illegal captivity. My father, Baquer Namazi, in February of 2016 was lured back to come and visit his son, my brother Siamak, by the IRGC. Upon his arrival at the airport, he was arrested. He spent 2 years in the IRGC ward in horrific conditions for an 81-year-old man, for any person, at any age, but in particular for someone who was 81 years old to be put in solitary confinement for weeks. He had over 8 emergency hospitalizations, 2 heart surgeries, all while under custody. And eventually, about a year and a half ago, my father was placed on a medical furlough. And we continue to implore and fight for my father's ability to leave Iran to get immediate medical attention. Both my father and my brother were convicted in October of 2016 by a revolutionary court in a sham trial with complete lack of any kind of due process or any attempt at due process. They had no representation. They were faced in a trial that took half an hour, and they were both summarily convicted of 10 years on the charge of collaborating with the hostile government, namely the United States. Their appeal was subsequently, the following August, also then confirmed. We've been enduring ongoing pain and disappointment that my family members have been held captive for so long. I have been, along with many friends in this House, in the Senate, the administration, everywhere, the United Nations, fighting to get my family out, and I'm saddened that I sit here today in March of 2020, and I sit here alone without any of my family members next to me. There have been multiple attempts to get my family out. I know this. I know while President Obama and Secretary Kerry did not include my brother in the swap, which again, it's not clear to me why. They tried until Obama left. He did try to get them out, and obviously unsuccessfully. President Trump tweeted when he was a candidate that he tweeted about my family that this doesn't happen to Americans when he's president. I was very encouraged. I know President Trump, along with his administration, have been trying to get my family and other hostages home. We know President Trump in particular has had a lot of interest and success in getting other American hostages back. Unfortunately, until today, obviously that has not included my family. Um, so while they're trying hard, 3 years have been gone by since this administration came to office, and I sit here again calling on President Trump and the administration to really redouble the efforts to get my family home, to get other American hostages home. Unfortunately, we're facing a situation where other hostages have been taken from other countries, and it's really time to put an end to this unfathomable, unexplainable, inhumane treatment of human beings. Obviously, what I've been doing, and I consider myself trying to do as much as a son and a brother can, I have not succeeded until today. I haven't succeeded in bringing my family home. And therefore the administration hasn't also succeeded with what they do. I need to take a new approach. I'm taking new approaches every day, and then I'm counting on the administration to take new creative approaches to ensure the safe return of American hostages and obviously my family and those who are also languishing in Iranian jails. Obviously, there needs to be more done to get hostages home. I say this with conviction because my family is not home. I know it is high priority. We've seen it. We've seen the success, in Iran in December with the exchange that took between the American citizen Wang when he was exchanged with an Iranian prisoner. Obviously, I was thrilled for the family. We fought together, we bled together, and that gives us hope. But you can't be that patient in circumstances like this. I've had no choice but to be patient for 4 years, but I'm not patient, and I'm really counting the days that I'm able to be reunited with my family. Today, I need to underscore and highlight a extremely concerning situation, which is, of course, the coronavirus. The coronavirus has been affecting us globally. This is a crisis at a level affecting all of humanity, and we have to deal with it in a human way, as most countries are. I'm horrified. I'm horrified for my brother who is in Ewen prison. Siamak Namazi is in Ewen prison, is an American citizen, along with other American citizens, other Iranians, other nationalities who are cooped up in an overly crowded area, which has had reported outbreaks of coronavirus. My brother is horrified. Everyone there is horrified. There lacks basic testing kits, there lacks medicine, there lacks hygienic and disinfectant supplies, and people have been interacting together in a very, very confined area. I cannot understand why there would be resistance by anyone when the situation is becoming such an epidemic in Iran and in a situation in jail where people are defenseless. I call upon Iran to really take a step back and to consider the humanity that is required to be displayed at a time where the global population is exposed to this. 54,000 prisoners were released by Iran, and I fail to understand why my brother and others who are exposed to this grave danger are not being allowed to go. I'm begging as a son and a brother, I'm begging as a human being to please allow my brother, as well as others who are being exposed to the virus, to be given a short, I've always been obviously talking about a permanent release, but right now we're in an emergency situation. Do not let a bad situation get worse. Obviously, this is a global event, and I also see and I call upon and I expect our own administration, as well as others, to lend a hand and provide humanitarian aid to Iran. This is something which it doesn't matter if I'm American, if I'm Iranian, if I'm Chinese, I'm a human being, and we all need help. So please, That's allowed Siamak and other Americans and other Iranians and other nationalities who live in prison to come out to self-contain and not to have their lives be endangered. We're desperate. I cannot underscore enough the danger that everyone's exposed to. You see the news, you hear the news, at what level the infection is not only affecting the general population in Iran, at the level that even officials at various levels are being infected. So we have this responsibility as human beings, not as Iranians, not as officials, not as Americans, but as human beings to take care of each other. Lastly, I wanted to express my appreciation that the Levinson Act was passed yesterday by the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The Bob Levinson Act takes an all-government approach in helping American hostages and illegally detained Americans like my family to get an all-government approach and all-government help when we need to get all the resources. I hope the bill will be brought to the House floor as soon as possible for a vote. And with that, I thank you for paying attention.
Good morning. Just wanted to explain Mr. Smith's absence. Apparently there's a motion to recommit, so they're still on the floor voting. We apologize, but he'll be here as soon as he can. So, thank you.
Thank you, Babak. I'm always so impressed by your ability to speak to us with such authority, given everything that you're going through. And I think everyone should realize that it's so unfair that someone like Babak has now become an expert at navigating the U.S. government, is forced into this position because his loved ones are being wrongfully detained for so much time. And unfortunately, many families are in this situation where they have learned the ins and outs of our government under very tragic circumstances. I'm here today as the Executive Director of the James W. Foley Legacy Foundation, which is a nonprofit started in 2014 after the kidnap and brutal murder of American journalist James Foley in Syria. And our president and founder, Diane Foley, James' mother, wishes she could be here today, but she would tell you, as I'm about to tell you, that we exist to carry on Jim's legacy of advocating for all Americans held hostage and wrongfully detained abroad, and promoting the safety of journalists worldwide. And we believe that our government must support these families throughout this difficult time, and they must spend resources on these families in terms of engaging with them regularly, transparently, and working with them in creative solutions to free their loved ones. So before I go into a little bit more about the work that we do in hostage advocacy, I want to read an excerpt of a letter from the mother of another American wrongfully detained in Iran, Michael White, who could not be here today. His mother, Joanne, writes to the chairs of the Lantos Human Rights Commission that my son is Michael Ray White, who is now ending his 592nd day held hostage by the Islamic Republic of Iran. My son served honorably in the United States Navy as a data entry clerk and a cook, and is medically retired. Simply put, my son is very sick, and I believe his life is in imminent jeopardy. My son is an immunocompromised cancer patient, having only just completed a round of chemotherapy for neck cancer prior to leaving the United States for Iran in July 2018. Since he's been in custody, he's had a recurrence of cancer, a malignant melanoma, which was removed. Because he received no chemotherapy or other follow-up care, I believe it is likely that my son currently has cancer of some kind that is not being treated. When Michael was first taken into custody, he was exposed to harsh, cruel, and unusual treatment. He had IRGC agents apply a taser to his face. He was whipped about his feet, and they dry fired a handgun to the back of his head. He was also subjected to sexual assault, starved, and subjected to extreme temperatures. My son was supposedly convicted in a sham trial of posting a photo on Instagram and insulting the supreme leader. The proceedings were conducted in Farsi, and Michael was neither provided a translator or meaningful opportunity to consult an attorney of his choice. Let me be clear, these charges are merely a pretext for a state-sponsored kidnap for ransom scheme. Michael has been effectively held incommunicado since the escalations. He was last able to call me, his mother, on December 30th, 2019. Swiss diplomats have not been able to get access to Michael since August 2019, in clear violation of Iran's bilateral and international obligations. Recently and without explanation, the regime flew Michael from Mashhad prison, where he's currently being held, to Tehran on January 28th. After 11 unexplained days in Ewen prison, Michael was allegedly flown back to Mashhad, where the Iranians claim he's currently being held. Given the scope of the coronavirus outbreak in Iran, including specifically in Mashhad, where Michael is allegedly being held, it is unfathomable he hasn't been exposed. And I believe with each passing day, the odds of Michael dying in Iranian custody increases, and I believe his life is imminently at risk. I am a widowed, disabled senior citizen trying to save my son's life, and I need your help. I need a government my son proudly served to bring him home to me so that he can get the advanced medical care he so badly needs. Time is running out for the Iranian regime to release Michael alive and avoid the consequences that would certainly follow if he dies in their custody. So the James W. Foley Legacy Foundation seeks to work with all families going through this horrific situation, whether they be held hostage by non-state groups like terrorist organizations or criminal groups, or being wrongfully detained by foreign governments, either acknowledged, like these cases that we are seeing in Iran and many cases that we see in other countries, or unacknowledged. We really want to assist these families in raising awareness about their cases because they're our fellow Americans and we need to do all we can to bring them home. But we also want to continue to push the U.S. government to make improvements to its current hostage policy. In 2015, reforms were made that have been dramatically helpful to families experiencing this. Different mechanisms were created to better support families of Americans held hostage, including the Hostage Recovery Fusion Cell, the Special Presidential Envoy for Hostage Affairs, and the Hostage Response Group at the National Security Council. But in a report that we published last year, we did find that we were hearing similar stories of lack of information and regular contact with the government on the part of many Americans who have loved ones who are wrongfully detained by foreign governments. And so we are working with the U.S. government to ensure that those families are getting more support. And as Babak mentioned, the Levinson Act is one initiative that is currently underway in Congress. There's also a version of the bill in the Senate which seeks to make permanent the policy changes that I just mentioned from 2015, which would be very helpful to families and really send a strong message that returning Americans from captivity abroad is a true priority of our government. But we are facing this phenomenon which doesn't seem to relent. We currently estimate that there are approximately 31 Americans wrongfully detained around the world. This is probably a tip of the iceberg number. There are many cases that we do not know about. There are also hostage cases, and together hostages and wrongfully detained Americans span from places like Iran, Syria, China, Russia, Egypt, Venezuela, Saudi Arabia, West Africa, Pakistan, Afghanistan. So while this might seem small and isolated, the reality is that any American traveling today, working abroad, as a journalist, as an aid worker, as a businessman, as a tourist, as a student, they're all at risk of being wrongfully taken, and our government must have their back. So we are working with the families, like the Namazis, like the Levinsons, like the Whites, and many other families who are going through this tragedy. And we really hope that we can work together swiftly to bring them home so that they don't have to spend any more days, hours, minutes, seconds in this hell that they're living in. We really must do all that we can to help them. Thank you.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Jared, thank you for originally making the introduction several months ago. What an eye-opener. I don't think your father or brother could have a better advocate. You are just tenacious, very, very even-keeled. I don't know how you contain your emotions so well. I don't think I could do that. So I want to thank you for, the Iranians should know none of us are going to go away. We're going to continue raising these issues, and I do think that the outreach that's been made, I was with the Vice President yesterday here on Capitol Hill, Dr. Fauci and others. They've reached out to Iran. We don't want people to get sick and die or get very sick. You know, we're talking about a health minister who, you know, got the coronavirus in Iran. You know, it's an offer that's very real, and it's based on humanitarianism, as you clearly indicated. Well, there hopefully will be some reciprocity, you know, to stop mistreating. I mean, the fact that your brother is still incarcerated, you know, your father was only out, as we all know, because of a medical, humanitarian type of release, at least as far as we could tell. But we're going to just keep it up. I want you to know that. Jim and I are both totally committed. If you ever want to come back and do a formal hearing, you pick the time, we'll do it. And because you know, to further get your incredible love for your family, your brother and dad, in this case, it's inspiring. And you know, there are humanitarians, even in dictatorships. Hopefully, they look at this and say, you know, why are we holding him? You know, why do we do this? It brings nothing but dishonor on the Iranian regime, and the Iranian people are great people. They deserve better than to have people who are either Iranian American or others, Iranians themselves, so maltreated. So we're totally committed. You pick the time, we'll do a full hearing on it, which means more members will be here, and the only reason members were not here in the numbers that we would have had is that we had a whole series of votes, and so I apologize for that.
No, please don't apologize. I mean, I'm extremely grateful. I'm extremely grateful to be hosted by you. Thank you.
So glad to have you.
Once.
And you have a great advocate here at this man.
Yeah, no,
He is a
this is just say, where do